Hello and welcome to the Cultured Bumpkin. I've finished Treasure Island, except I can't find a couple of the files. Chapter 3 is one of the files I can't find. So I also can't find Chapter 5, and there may be some more as I'm adding them up. Anywho, we're going to do Chapter 3 today as a pickup. And then I'll be able to post the next, I'll be able to post the first hour or so. And then once I get those done, then I'll put them all together and put them on the classic audiobooks playlist right here on the Cultured Bumpkin. So let's get started. Chapter 3, The Black Spot. About noon, I stopped at the cabin's door with some cooling drinks and medicines. He was lying very much as we had left him, only a little higher, and he seemed both weak and excited. "Jim," he said, "you're the only one that's worth anything, and you know I've always been good to you. Never a month, but I've given you a silver fourpenny for yourself. And now you see, mate, I'm pretty low and deserted by all. And Jim, you'll bring me one noggin of rum now, won't you, matey?" "The doctor," I began, but he broke in, cursing the doctor in a feeble voice but heartily. "Doctors is all swabs," he said. "And that doctor there, why, what do he know about seafaring men? I've been places hot as pitch, and mates dropping round with Yellow Jack, and the blessed land a-heaving like the sea with earthquakes. What the doctor know of lands like that? I lived on rum, I tell you. It's been meat and drink and man and wife to me. And I'm not going to have my rum now. I'm a poor old hulk on a lee shore. And if I'm not to have my rum now, I'm a poor old hulk on a lee shore. My blood'll be on you, Jim, and the Dr. Swab." And he ran on again for a while with curses. "Look, Jim, how my fingers fidgeting," he continued in the pleading tone. "I can't keep 'em still. Not I. I hadn't had a drop this blessed day. That doctor's a fool, I tell you. If I don't have a drain of rum, Jim, I'll have the horrors. I've seen him already. I seen old Flint in the corner there, behind you, as plain as print I seen him. And if I get the horrors, I'm a man that's lived rough, and I'll raise Cain. Your doctor himself said one glass wouldn't hurt me. I'll give you a golden guinea for a noggin, Jim." He was growing more and more excited, and this alarmed me for my father, who was very low that day and needed quiet. Besides, I was reassured by the doctor's words, now quoted to me, and rather offended by the offer of a bribe. "I want none of your money," said I, "but what you owe my father. I'll get you one glass and no more." When I brought it to him, he seized it greedily and drank it out. Ah," said he, "some better, sure enough. And now, matey, did the doctor say how long I was to lie here in this old berth?" "A week at least," said I. "Thunder!" he cried. "A week! I can't do that. They'd have the black spot on me by then. The lubbers is going to get to the wind of the lubbers is going about to get wind of me this blessed moment. Lubbers is wouldn't keep what they got and want to nail what's another's. Is that seamanly behavior now, I want to know? But I'm saving so. I never wasted good money of mine, nor lost it neither, and I trick 'em again. I'm not afraid of 'em. I'll shake out another reef, matey, and daddle 'em again." As he was thus speaking, he had risen from bed with great difficulty, holding to my shoulder with a grip that almost made me cry out, and moving his legs like so much dead weight. His words, spirited as they were in meaning, contrasted sadly with the weakness of his voice in which they were uttered. He paused when he had gotten to a sitting position on the edge. "That doctor's done me," he murmured. "My ears are singing. Lay me back." "My ears are singing. Lay me back." Before I could do much to help him, he had fallen back again to his former place, where he lay for a while, silent. "Jim," he said at length, "you saw that seafaring man today?" "Black Dog?" I asked. "Black Dog," says he. "He's a bad 'un, but there's worse that put him on. Now, if I can't get away nohow, and they tip me the black spot, mind you, it's my old sea chest they're after. You get on a horse. You can't you? Well, then you get on a horse and go to, well, yes, I will, to to that eternal Dr. Swab and tell him to pipe all hands, magistrates and such, and he'll lay him aboard at the Admiral Benbow. All old Flint's crew, man and boy, all on 'em that's left. I was first mate, I was, old Flint's first mate, and I'm the only one as knows the place. He gave to me at Savannah when he lay a-dying, like as if I was to now, you see. You won't peach unless you get the black spot on me. But you won't peach unless they get the black spot on me, or unless you see that black dog again, or a seafaring man with one leg, Jim. Him above all. But what is the black spot, Captain? I asked. Well, that's a summons, mate. I'll tell you if they get it. I'll tell you if they get that. But keep your weather eye open, Jim, and I'll share with you equals upon my honor. He wandered a little longer, his voice growing weaker. But soon after I'd given him his medicine, which he took like a child, with the remark, "If ever a seaman wanted drugs, it's me," he at last fell into a heavy, swoon-like sleep in which I left him. What I should have done had all gone well, I don't know. Probably I should have told the whole story to the doctor, who was in mortal fear lest the captain should repent of his confessions and make an end of me. But as things fell out, my poor father died quite suddenly that evening, which put all other matters on one side. Our natural distress, the visits of the neighbors, the arranging of the funeral, and all the work of the inn to be carried on in the meanwhile, kept me so busy that I had hardly time to think of the captain, far less to be afraid of him. He got downstairs next morning, to be sure, and had his meals as usual, though he ate little and had more, I'm afraid, than his usual supply of rum, for he helped himself out of the bar, scowling and blowing through his nose. No one dared cross him. On the night before the funeral, he was as drunk as ever, and it was shocking in that house of mourning to hear him singing away at his ugly old sea song. But weak as he was, we were all in the fear of death for him, and the doctor was suddenly taken up with a case many miles away and was never near the house after my father's death. I've said the captain was weak, and indeed he seemed rather to grow weaker than regain his strength. He clambered up and down stairs and went from the parlor to the bar and back again, and sometimes put his nose out of doors to smell the sea, holding on to the walls as he went for support, and breathing hard and fast like a man on a steep mountain. He never particularly addressed me, and it's my belief he had as good as forgotten his confidences, but his temper was more flighty, and allowing for his bodily weakness, more violent than ever. He had an alarming way now, when he was drunk, of drawing his cutlass and laying it bare before him on the table. But with all that, he minded people less and seemed to shut up in his own thoughts and rather wandering. Once, for instance, to our extreme wonder, he piped up to a different air, a king and country love song that he must have learned in his youth before he began to follow the sea. So things passed until the day after the funeral, about 3 o'clock of a bitter, foggy, frosty afternoon. I was standing at the door for a moment, full of sad thoughts about my father, when I saw someone drawing slowly near along the road. He was plainly blind, for he tapped before him with a stick and wore a great green shade over his eyes and nose, and he was hunched, as if with age or weakness, and wore a huge old tattered sea cloak with a hood that made him appear positively deformed. I never saw in my life a more dreadful-looking creature. He stopped a little from the inn, and raising his voice in an odd sing-song, addressed the air in front of him. "Will any kind friend inform a poor blind man who's lost his precious sight, in gracious defense of his native country, England, and God bless King George, where or in what part of this country he may now be?" "You're at the Admiral Benbow, Black Hill Cove, my good man," said I. "I hear a voice," said he, "a young voice. Will you give me your hand, my kind young friend, and lead me in?" I held out my hand, and the horrible, soft-spoken, eyeless creature gripped it in a moment like a vice. I was so startled that I struggled to withdraw, but the blind man pulled me close up to him with a single action of his arm. "Now, boy," he said, "take me into the captain." "Sir," said I, "upon my word I dare not." "Oh," he sneered, "that's it. Take me in or I'll break your arm." And he gave it, as he spoke, a wrench that made me cry out. "Sir," said I, "it's for yourself, I mean. The captain is not what he used to be. He sits with a drawn cutlass. Another gentleman—" "Come now, march," interrupted he. And I never heard a voice so cruel and cold and ugly as that blind man's. It cowed me more than the pain, and I began to obey him at once, walking straight in at the door and towards the parlor where our sick old buccaneer was sitting, dazed with rum. The blind man clung close to me, holding me in one iron fist and leaning almost more of his weight on me than I should carry. "Lead me straight up to him, and when I'm in view, cry out, 'Here's a friend for you, Bill. If you don't, I'll do this.'" And with that he gave me a twitch that I thought would have made me faint. Between this and that, I was so utterly terrified of the blind beggar that I forgot my terror of the captain, and as I opened the parlor door, cried out the words he had ordered in a trembling voice. The poor captain raised his eyes, and at one look the rum went out of him, and he left him staring sober. Quick little water break. Good afternoon, Mandy. Just seeing your comment. Hope you're doing well. Doing a little Treasure Island. After I do this is a pickup chapter recording, but I'll be uploading the whole Southern Treasure Island here pretty soon, hopefully in the next few days. All right, where are we at? "Now, Bill, sit where you are," said the beggar. "If I can't see, I can hear a finger stirring. Business is business. Hold out your left hand. Boy, take his left hand by the wrist and bring it near to my right." We both obeyed him to the letter, and I saw him pass something from the hollow of the hand that held his stick into the palm of the captain's, which closed upon it instantly. "And now that's done," said the blind man, and at the words he suddenly left hold of me, and with incredible accuracy and nimbleness skipped out of the parlor and into the road, where, as I still stood motionless, I could hear his stick go tap, tap, tapping into the distance. It was some time before either I or the captain seemed to gather our senses, but at length, and about at the same moment, I released his wrist, which I was still holding, and he drew in his hand and looked sharply into the palm. "10 o'clock," he cried. "6 hours. We'll do 'em yet." And he sprang to his feet. Even as he did so, he reeled, put his hand to his throat, stood swaying for a moment, and then, with a peculiar sound, fell from his whole height, face foremost, to the floor. I ran to him at once, calling to my mother, but haste was all in vain. The captain had been struck dead by thundering apoplexy. It's a curious thing to understand, for I had certainly never liked the man, though of late I had begun to pity him. But as soon as I saw that he was dead, I burst into a flood of tears. It was the second death I had known, and the sorrow of the first was still fresh in my heart. That is chapter 3. So I've recorded chapter 4, the sea chest. So he goes through it with his mom, and then so chapter 5 is when the guy comes back. The guy that had just gave him the black spot. Chapter 5. The Last of the Blind Man. My curiosity, in a sense, was stronger than my fear, for I could not remain where I was, but crept back to the bank again, whence sheltering my head behind a bush of broom, I might command the road before our door. I was scarcely in position ere my enemies began to arrive, 7 or 8 of them, running hard, their feet beating out time along the road, and the man with the lantern some paces in front. 3 men ran together hand in hand, and I made out, even through the mist, that the lower man of this trio was the blind, even through the mist, that the middle man of this trio was the blind beggar. The next moment, his voice showed me that I was right. "Down with the door!" he cried. "Ah, sir," answered 2 or 3, and a rush was made upon the Admiral Benbow, the lantern bearer following, and then I could see him pause and hear speeches passed in a lower key, as if they were surprised to find the door open. But the pause was brief, for the blind man again issued his commands. His voice sounded louder and higher, as if he were afire with eagerness and rage. "In, he shouted, and cursed them for their delay. 4 or 5 of them obeyed at once, 2 remaining on the road with the formidable beggar. There was a pause, then a cry of surprise, and then a voice shouting from the house, "Bill's dead!" But the blind man swore at him again for their delay. "Search him, some of you shrieking lubbers, and the rest of you aloft and get to chest," he cried. I could hear their feet rattling up our old stairs, so that the house must have shook with it. Promptly afterwards, fresh sounds of astonishment arose. The window of the captain's room was thrown open with a slam and a jingle of broken glass, and a man leaned out into the moonlight, head and shoulders, and addressed the blind beggar on the road below him. "Pew!" he cried. "They've been before us. Someone turn that chest out alow and aloft." "Is it there?" roared Pew. "The money's there." The blind man cursed the money. "Flint's fist, I mean," he cried. "We don't see it here nohow," returned the man. "Here, you below there, is it you, Bill?" cried the blind man again. "Here, you below there, is it on, Bill?" cried the blind man again. At that, another fellow, probably him who had remained below to search the captain's body, came to the door of the inn. "Bill's been overhauled already," said he. "Nothing's left." "It's these people of the inn. It's that boy. I wish I'd put his eyes out," cried the blind man Pew. "There were no time ago they had that door bolted when I tried it. Scatter, lads, and find 'em." "Sure enough." Excuse me. "Sure enough, they left their glim here," said the fellow from the window. "Scatter and find 'em. Rout the house out," reiterated Pew, striking with his stick upon the road. Then there followed a great to-do through our old inn. Heavy feet all through our old inn. Heavy feet pounding to and fro, furniture thrown over, doors kicked in, until the very rocks re-echoed, and the men came out again, one after another, on the road, and declared that we were nowhere to be found. And just the same whistle that had alarmed my mother and myself over the dead captain's money was once more clearly audible through the night, but this time twice repeated. I thought it to be the blind man's trumpet, so to speak, summoning his crew to the assault. But now I found it was a signal from the hillside towards the hamlet, and from its effect upon the buccaneers, a signal to warn them of approaching danger. "There's Dirk again," said one. "Twice. We'll have to budge, mates." "Budge, you skulk!" cried Pew. "Dirk was a fool and a coward from the first. You wouldn't mind him. They must be close by. They can't be far. You have your hands on it. Scatter and look for him, dogs. Oh, shiver my soul," he cried. "If I had eyes." This appeal seemed to produce some effect, for 2 of the fellows began to look here and there among the lumber, but half-heartedly, I thought, and with an eye to their own danger all the time, while the rest stood irresolute on the road. "You have your hands on thousands, you fools, and you hang a leg. You'd be rich as kings if you could find it. And you know it's here, and you stand there skulking. There wasn't one of you dared face Bill, and I did it, a blind man, and I'm to lose my chance for you. I'm to be a poor crawling beggar sponging for rum when I might be rolling in a coach. If you had the pluck of a weevil in a biscuit, you'd still catch him. If you had the pluck of a weevil in a biscuit, you'd catch him still. Hang it, Pew, we got the doubloons, grumbled one. They might have hid the blessed thing, said another. Take the Georges, Pew, and don't stand there squalling. Squalling was the word for it. Pew's anger rose so high at all these objections, till at last, passion completely taking the upper hand, he struck at him right and left in his blindness, and his stick sounded heavily on more than one. These, in their turn, cursed back at the blind miscreant, threatened him in horrible terms, and tried in vain to catch the stick and wrest it from his grasp. This quarrel was the saving of us, for while it was still raging, another sound came from the top of the hill on the side of the hamlet, the tramp of horses galloping. Almost at the same time, a pistol shot, flash and report, came from the hedge side, and that was plainly the last signal of danger, for the buccaneers turned at once and ran, separating in every direction, one seaward along the cove, one slant across the river, and so on, so that in half a minute not a sign of him remained but Pew. Him they had deserted, whether in sheer panic or out of revenge for his ill words and blows, I know not, but there he remained, behind, tapping up and down the road in a frenzy, and groping and calling for his comrades. Finally, he took a wrong turn and ran a few steps past me, turned towards the hamlet, crying, "Johnny, Black Dog, Dirk," and other names. "You won't leave old Pew, mates, not old Pew." Just then the noise of horses topped the rise, and 4 or 5 riders came in sight in the moonlight and swept at full gallop down the slope. At this, Pew saw his error, turned with a scream, and ran straight for the ditch, into which he rolled. But he was on his feet again in a second and made another dash, now utterly bewildered, right under the nearest of the coming horses. The rider tried to save him, but in vain. Down went Pew with a cry that rang high into the night, and the 4 hooves trampled and spurned him and passed by. He fell on his side, then gently collapsed upon his face and moved no more. I leaped to my feet and hailed the riders. They were pulling up at any rate, horrified at the accident, and I soon saw what they were. One, tailing out behind the rest, was a lad that had gone from the hamlet to Dr. Livesey's. The rest were revenue officers whom he had met by the way, and with whom he had had the intelligence to return at once. Some news of the lugger in Kit's Hole had found its way to Supervisor Dance and set him forth that night in our direction. And to that circumstance my mother and I owed our preservation from death. Pew was dead, stone dead. As for my mother, when we had carried her up to the hamlet, a little cold water and salts, and that soon brought her back again, and she was none the worse for her terror, though she still continued to deplore the balance of the money. In the meantime, the supervisor rode on as fast as he could to Kit's Hole, but his men had to dismount and grope down the dingle, leading and sometimes supporting their horses, and in continual fear of ambushes. So it was no great matter for surprise that when they got to the hole, the lugger was already under way, though still close in. He hailed her, a voice replied, telling him to keep out of the moonlight or he would get some lead in him, and at the same time a bullet whistled close by his arm. Soon after, the lugger doubled the point and disappeared. Mr. Dance stood there, as he said, like a fish out of water, and all he could do was dispatch a man to warn the cutter. "And that," said he, "is just about as good as nothing. They've got off clean, and there's an end. Only," he added, "I'm glad I trod on Master Pew's corns," for by this time he had heard my story. I went back with him to the Admiral Benbow, and you cannot imagine a house in such a state of smash. The very clock had been thrown down by these fellows in their furious hunt after my mother and myself, and though nothing had actually been taken away except the captain's money bag and a little silver from the till, I could see at once that we were ruined. Mr. Dance could make nothing of the scene. They got the money, you say. Well, then, Hawkins, what in fortune were they after? More money, I suppose. No, sir, not money, I think, replied I. In fact, sir, I believe I have the thing in my breast pocket, and to tell you the truth, I should like to get it put in safety. Well, to be sure, boy, quite right, said he. I'll take it if you like. I thought perhaps Dr. Livesey, I began. But perfectly right. Perfectly right, he interrupted very cheerily. Perfectly right. A gentleman and a magistrate. And now, I come to think of it, I might as well ride round there myself and report to him or Squire. Master Pugh's dead when all's done. Not that I regret it, but he's dead, you see, and people will make it out against an officer of His Majesty's revenue if make it out they can. Now, I'll tell you, Hawkins, if you like, I'll take you along. I thanked him heartily for the offer, and we walked back to the hamlet where the horses were. By the time I had told my mother of the purpose, by the time I had told mother of my purpose, they were all in the saddle. Dogger, said Mr. Dance, you have a good horse. Take this lad up behind you. As soon as I was mounted, holding on to Dogger's belt, the supervisor gave the word, and the party struck out at a bouncing trot on the road to Dr. Livesey's house. Okay, so that's chapters 3 and 5. I've done all the other chapters, I think, so I'm editing them into the audiobook. So if you like classic literature read by real humans, a real human audiobook narrator, definitely subscribe. I think you'll like it. You'll like it here. Check out my classic audiobooks playlist. I have a lot of stuff on there. Sherlock Holmes, Christmas Carol, a lot of Jane Austen novels with Southern characters. Wind in the Willows, Winnie the Pooh, just did Winnie the Pooh, things like that. So if you like classic literature, I think you will really like it here. And I will get this edited and reposted shortly. So you'll have Treasure Island in audiobook form right here. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and I hope to see you again very soon.